Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I don't know if anyone relates to this, but I feel like I've been here before. I think the truth is that I have, yet I love, again, that quality of brand new life, brand new spirit, that, of course, the new year is a metaphor for. Any moment is an opportunity to embody, embrace, and indeed dive in, go deeper into the brand new. I love experiencing the same thing in a brand new way. It's one of my favorite things to do, to experience something in a deeper way. It could be a line in a good book. Maybe I read it once before, but when I read it the second time, I come upon a line I didn't notice before, and so I underline it. It's like I've earned it. I love watching a great scene in a movie I've seen before, but having the ending in mind, so understanding the foreshadowing or the intensity of that scene more deeply. I love studying a quote perhaps I've heard 100 times before, but to understand it within its historical context. I love realizing that I've been singing the wrong song lyric all the time. The song, right? The classic version being, "Oh, it's Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer," not "Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza." I shared with the person that my favorite from April, she's always thought the song "Money Money" was guacamole. So that's guacamole. Goes good with chips. What I've learned about experiencing something more deeply, and I don't mean this in a woo-woo way, is that I must first always go deeper within myself. I have to open myself to understanding something deeper, to be educated about it, to connect with it. I, in fact, have to grow myself to understand more deeply or in greater depth what a thing is. This, of course, isn't just true when it comes to all different forms of media, but with our relationships, our careers, our way of being in the world. In order to improve and deepen my understanding of my relationships, I must deepen and improve myself. In order to deepen and experience a career, live with purpose and a sense of passion, I must deepen my exploration and my willingness to be my true self. In order to deepen in my relationship with God, to dive into the soul, it is not an entryway outside of myself, but I must go within. There's a great quote that relates to the song that Daniel was singing as well. It's a pretty deep quote, speaking of going deeper, by Franz Kafka, who said, "The truth is always an abyss. One must, as in a swimming pool, dare to dive from the quivering springboard of trivial, everyday experience and sink into the depths in order to later rise again, laughing and fighting for breath, to the now doubly illuminated surface of things." Our theme for our talks in 2015 is going to be going deeper. So if you weren't able to do it just during Daniel's song, you have all year, don't worry, to jump off the diving board. The idea is being that for most of us, we'll experience a lot of brand new in our life this year, but more often than not, we'll be coming back around to things that we've experienced and been in relationship with before. So the call this year is to go deeper into ourselves so that we may relate with them more deeply. Depth, or going deeper to me, not being a term that means to go underneath something, but to truly behold and interact and witness the wholeness of a thing. First through entering and opening ourselves, and then by being present with it. So all of our talks at some level are going to center around how can I experience my life more deeply? How can I have a more intimate relationship in everything that matters to me? How can I improve my relationships? How can I improve my self-awareness? How can I treat myself better? How can I open my heart to be a place where miracles can happen and express in my own life? Going deeper within ourselves isn't an easy thing to do because sometimes there's a lot underneath to wade through. Yet if we keep going, the promise of every spiritual teaching that has ever been, any mystical spiritual teaching that has ever been, is that we reveal through ourselves a spiritual power, a divine presence. God is there. Out there, maybe, but in here, certainly. We can connect and cultivate, if we're willing to go deeper within ourselves, an amazing, extraordinary power. Ernest Holmes refers to it this way in this thing called life, which will be inspiring the talks this month of January. He says, the power of God within us is like a sleeping giant. The power of God within us is like a sleeping giant, which must be awakened that it may spring into action. Awaken the sleeping giant in you and apply it to any area of your life and watch the power of divine spirit do its thing. For me, at its most pragmatic, awakening the sleeping giant within me, it influences and inspires and lines my choices. I know we often talk about thinking being creative, but I really like the word choices. My choices are creative, and that principle, that presence that responds to those choices I make is what Ernest Holmes refers to as the law of life. The law of life is this affirmative energy that recognizes no matter what choices I'm making, constructive, destructive, incoming, outgoing, whatever they are, they're lined by this presence that is the giant within waking up, bringing a creative force that will draw and attract like to like, that will bring me into balance and accord with who I am most deeply called to become. If you learn to think of life, Holmes tells us, as flowing through your every action, you will soon discover that the things you give your attention to are quickened with new energy, for you are breathing the very essence of being into them. So choose good, choose happiness, choose wholeness, not in denial of the difficulties of life, but in spite of them. Choose your highest, your best good. I've come to discover in my own life that the greatest illusion I've come to live under isn't separation. It's not that I'm not good enough. It's that I'm not at choice. It's that I'm not at choice, and therefore there isn't an energy that is affirming those choices. Just a couple months ago, I noticed I was being a little bit more moody than at other times. Anyone here ever get moody? A little grumpy? Maybe it's more recent than a couple months ago, too. But I'll be doing really good. I'll have a smile on my face and in a state of appreciation. Then all of a sudden I'll be on the road and there'll be a lot of cars out there and I'll start banging on the dashboard. Move out of the way! What's going on? And it's like, where did this come from? Where did this come from? I'll be watching the Laker game and I'm not feeling good because they're losing anyhow, but someone will call and I'll feel like my space is violated. How dare you call me that? So that happiness and the sense of gratitude can turn to vicious very quick. And I had to go, what's going on? And on the surface, I could see what was going on. I wasn't getting what I wanted. When I don't get what I want, I get angry. And that's a very healthy thing until that anger turns into feeling no control over myself. A little bit of anger is a good thing. But going deeper, really going, what's going on there, I began to realize that what was really sparking that vicious in me was that belief that I'm not a choice. That this thing that has happened is a validation to me that I'm not in control. I can't move the cars. I can't make the Lakers play better. I can't stop that person from calling, so I begin to feel that I'm not at choice. And then I begin to feel downtrodden with this idea that there's a creative power, that there's such thing as the law of life affirming my choices, bringing me to life, bringing the life that I choose into existence for me. Since you are fundamentally a mental being, Holmes tells us, you can think yourself into being unhappy and depressed, or you can think yourself into being glad. Did it ever occur to you that you can also think yourself into being well, into being prosperous? That you can think yourself into success? Well, you can if you believe in the law of life and use it rightly. But you must learn to use it affirmatively. You must learn to identify yourself with your desires. Now, I share this quote from Holmes and share my own experience, not to say that I think the right thing to do is to control everything that happens in your life and that we control everything that does happen to us through our thinking. I don't believe that one iota. But what I do believe is that the power of our choice to choose in accordance with our highest being, our highest calling, is always with us. And that this is the greatest spiritual power that there is, to choose, to say I am, to step into our life and make a choice for our betterment. I cannot control what happens to me, but I can choose how I will respond to anything taking place. And I will choose in alignment with my highest good, my highest being, that deepest truth that I have dug and worked so deeply to get to be and become. As Viktor Frankl said, forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing, your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. On the surface, this is some wise words from a wise man. When we go deeper and realize that he wrote them in relationship to almost being killed in a Nazi concentration camp, we realize the depth of what he's saying. Last week I got a little time off and I was really grateful for that, but I noticed a couple days into it I was more anxious and feeling like I was working harder than ever. Do you ever have that experience? Many people share that their retirement is like that. Because what began happening for me is I was so caught up in kind of the day-to-day getting stuff done that if I wasn't getting stuff done, I started feeling like I wasn't accomplishing in my day. So this idea of doing nothing was terrifying. Was angst-ridden. And so on the surface, this was about being really attached to getting stuff done. But again, going deeper was again this idea that I wasn't at choice. That rest and rejuvenation isn't really all that important. Somewhere in myself, I was throwing up a stop sign to my own good, to my own health, to my own well-being. You know, think about something in your life that bothers you, that's bugging you. It could be as simple as the next door neighbor's cat meowing too loud. It can be as intense as a relationship you've been struggling with for decades. You know, think about that thing and ask yourself, you know, why does that thing bother me? Why is it? You know, we may have a surface answer. And I invite you to go deeper and to maybe see or ask yourself, is there any choice I'm making in here in relationship to this instance, to this person, to this situation that is anti-myself? Somewhere in here, am I being my own worst enemy? Am I stopping or restricting a choice for my good in order to give power to some other thing outside of myself? What I know in my life is that true freedom for me is when I cease being my own enemy. It's when I stop stopping myself. Not that it's not healthy to have a good filter, God knows I need that, but when I stop restricting myself for my own good. Ernest Holmes' central message in spiritual living is this idea that life is for us and not against us. Life is for us and not against us. This is what freedom is. And so I know freedom is when I inform myself and stop acting and choosing against myself. You know, we can say things like, we are what we eat, or we are what we think, but what about we are what we choose? I like this idea that who I am is the sum total of all the choices I have ever made. Do you resonate with that? I can look at something I am, like a minister. That's a very present thing for me right now. And sure, there were a couple big choices that said yes to that, but really when I think about it, there were countless choices. All sorts of little investments in how I chose to show up in relationships to people, in my dedication to try to listen to people, in my relationship with God, or trying to study the sacred. All of these little choices added up to me making a big decision in my life career-wise to choose to be a minister. You may think that you fell subconsciously into becoming a parent, or becoming a spouse, or becoming a doctor, or becoming just the kind of friend you are to somebody. But if you really trace it back, you will find millions of choices that affirmed who you are and who you became. If you will take time daily to sense the presence of life within you, to believe in it, to accept it, it will not be long before the life which you have known will gradually disappear and something new will be born. A bigger, better, and more perfect you. You will pass from death into life, from lack and want into greater freedom, from fear into faith, from a sense of being alone. You will pass into a realization of oneness with everything, and you will rejoice in this oneness. So one powerful question to ask ourselves is, who am I because of my choices? That's a very powerful question, but the even more powerful question is, who will I now become because of my choices? Who will I be now? Choice is a powerful thing. It's one of the most powerful things that I know, and yet it is a fragile thing. Choice is fragile. You can choose over and over again for your good, and as most of us know, it just takes one choice to seemingly bring it all crumbling down. As a minister, it could just take one choice, Jimmy Swaggart, right? Oh, he's crying up here, I'm sorry. It doesn't take much, just one choice in our lives can seem to bring our life crumbling down, and that's the frightening aspect of the vulnerability of choice. That's sometimes why we're scared to dive in, to make a bigger choice. But the other side of that is for all of the years or perhaps decades of choices you have made towards the negative in something in your life, just one choice can transform it all. Just one choice can change your life. Just one choice can lay the foundation for a million more choices that heals your heart, that opens your mind to wonder, that connects your heart in the deepest way possible to those whom you love in a way that you never allowed before. Just one choice is all it takes to begin and end in a sense and in a relationship with the infinite. Some of my favorite words from Ernest Holmes is the reminder that you rob no person when you discover your own good. You limit no person when you express a greater degree of livingness. You harm no one by being happy. Sometimes our biggest obstruction to making a choice for our highest good is for some crazy reason we've told ourselves it might hurt or harm someone around us. But we must always remember to choose for our highest good is not only to benefit ourselves, but to benefit all those in life around us. To know that our good is the highest for all, including ourselves, is to live in alignment with a sense of divine purpose and knowingness. So again, just one choice. And if you need a suggestion for that choice, every day, at least once a day, choose yourself. Choose a moment of silence. Choose a moment of prayer. Choose a short little walk in nature. Choose listening to a favorite song. Choose a moment where you honor that awakened giant within yourself. And with that presence, with the awareness of that presence within you, apply it to your life. Apply it to the places in the light. Apply it to the places in the dark and bring them into the light. be centered in your own soul and know that your soul will guide and protect you because it is the fullness, untouched, unafraid part of you, always available, ever ready to spring into action. So just taking a prayerful moment in closing, I recognize that divine truth in all of life, knowing it is true for each of us who chooses to make it so. May we choose a sacred truth, may we choose divine truth in and through all things. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, everybody.